What's up, guys? Welcome back to the review space, and today I want to talk about the top 10 things that I like about the WWE PG era. So basically this is the top 10 things I enjoy, I appreciate about the PG era of wrestling today, WWE. Alright, so let's begin with number 1. Women's wrestling was improved. You're talking about the Beth Phoenix, Alicia Fox, Eve, Natalya, Karma. Better matches that are focused on the in-ring action as opposed to some kind of fan service where divas are just doing bikini contests and stripping down and basically looking like a bunch of housekeys. Now, don't get me wrong, I am a guy, I appreciate the female body, and I appreciate that, it's great, but I came here to see some wrestling, and these women, I'm sure they got talent, so let them go in the ring, let them do their thing, and that's what the PG era has done. There's more emphasis, there's more focus on actual matches. I've seen some really good matches, exchanges between Alicia Fox and Eve, for example. Beth Phoenix can go, Natalya can go, and when the time comes, Karma's going to be able to dominate. So, women's wrestling overall, I think, has been better and more enjoyable. And this might be a response to TNA. I'm not sure about this, but because there was a time when TNA's women's wrestling was actually really good. And then they fell off a little bit, and then WWE improved. So, could there be a correlation there, where WWE sort of improved their women's wrestling because of TNA's improvement? Or is it just because of the PG era? I think it's really more because of the PG era that they had to focus on the actual in-ring and the matches and the quality of the women's wrestling so that they would fit in more with the PG style of programming. Number 2, veterans retiring or just having a part-time schedule. You're talking about the HBKs, Batista, Undertaker, Edge, Triple H. Now, don't get it twisted. I don't wish injury upon these guys, and I don't want these guys to get hurt or anything like that. But at the same time, Edge is a multi-time world champion. I mean, Undertaker, how many times has he main evented WrestleMania and won? Guys like HBK, Triple H, and yes, even Batista. These guys are either getting up there in age and or they're just way too banged up. And I think it's a good thing overall for the WWE to have some of these veterans finally go and leave after so many years in the ring, because this actually has certain positives as well. And we're going to get into that right now. Number 3. Youth movement forcing younger talent to get more opportunities. Because of the veterans retiring, WWE is forced to push the younger talent. I like the fact that you had Dolph Ziggler, Jack Swagger, The Miz, Sheamus, Alberto Del Rio getting opportunities and title shots and reigns in the PG era. Otherwise, 5-6 years ago, they wouldn't have gotten that, with partially because of the veterans being around, and partially because they were way too young and they just weren't prepared at that time. But I think in the PG era, with this new focus on the youth movement, we get to see younger talent being pushed. And you can argue that, okay, they're still not ready. They're still not ready. They're still not over. I look at it in a more positive way because at least it's a fresh new face. The Miz, I thought, did a good job as champion. Sheamus. Swagger was, because of the way he was pushed and his gimmick was changed a little bit, I think that affected him. And Dolph Ziggler's reign wasn't really a reign, but he did get opportunities at the belt again this year. So these guys are easing into that role, and as time goes by, they'll get even better. So the youth movement overall has been a good thing in the PG era. Instead of just seeing the old dinosaurs like the Takers and the Edge and HBK, Triple H, we get to see the younger talent being pushed, and that's a very good thing. Number 4, WWE NXT was a good idea, and I liked it. I thought the first season was good. Again, when it comes to the new faces of wrestling, we saw some younger guys, and we were able to see this relatively cool contest show, kind of a pseudo-reality, semi-reality show. Obviously, a lot of it was a work, but it was still kind of interesting to see an all-rookie type of programming that didn't have much, if any, emphasis on any kind of veteran or any kind of anything to do with the usual actual programming of Raw or SmackDown. It was a separate entity unto itself, and I thought it was at least at the time, at the first season, it was a fresh new take. It was a fresh new type of programming. And not to mention that it gave us Daniel Bryan and Wade Barrett. So it did have some positives to it. Of course, the reiterations in the second season, the third season weren't as good. And I think NXT is still going on today, and I don't even watch it anymore. But again, the first season was good. It was a fresh feel. Number 5, the tag belt unification. In April 2009, the World Tag Team Championship belt and the WWE Tag Team Championship belts were unified by the Colones, Primo and Carlito. And then in August 2010, they just changed it to just the WWE Tag Team belts, which has the copper design on it. And that was held by the Hart Dynasty during the reign. The fact that the tag belts were finally unified was a very good thing. I felt like having two tag teams wasn't right for the WWE to have it at that time, and pretty much throughout all of the 2000s, because there really was never any emphasis on tag team wrestling to begin with, and there wasn't a lot of attention and focus and build and time around it. So only having just one tag team belt is a good thing. At least it's better than having two belts. That it just makes it even more convoluted, and it becomes redundant to a point where you don't even care about either championships. So when you have just one tag team champions, even to this day, there's no focus on it that much, and it's still just kind of a throwaway, afterthought kind of belt. But at least just having one group of tag team winning it is, you're cutting down on the BS. You're cutting down on the redundant, kind of tedious type of booking. Number 6, the epic push of Mark Henry. Alright, so Mark Henry, he was a mid-card rookie in the 90s. He was a lackey of the Nation of Domination. And then during the Attitude Era, he was a comedy character, Sexual Chocolate. But he was never really pushed or even taken seriously as a top contender. It wasn't until the mid-2000s where he was injected into that main event role, and he got title opportunities against the world champion, guys like Kurt Angle. So it really wasn't until the late 2000s, the PG era, when he actually got a serious push, and he slowly morphed into a legit world title contender. Obviously culminating in last year when he won the World Heavyweight title. I thought that was a cool thing, and Mark Henry he's a perfect fit for the PG era. I think he's a monster. He doesn't have to do any kind of crazy, vulgar, strange, or sexual kind of gimmick, and he's still a legitimate badass where he can beat other wrestlers and be a dominant force, and I think again he's a perfect fit for the PG era. Number 7, the end of ECW in early 2010. Thank goodness this ECW, which was really WWECW, it was already a poor shell of its former self. The original Paul Heyman hardcore version was a lot more different. It was a lot more edgy, and it was just hardcore. It was raw. It was vulgarity and sex, and that was good for the Attitude Era. But it was so different in the ECW of, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. The quality wasn't there. The lack of stars, it felt way too WWE-ish, and it was a third tier show. I mean, it was lagging way behind SmackDown and Raw, and there wasn't a lot of actual stars. They didn't have a lot of emphasis on the show. I just felt like it wasn't important enough, and it just didn't have enough quality to actual quality to actually watch it. I mean, they had champions like Bobby Lashley, The Big Show. They had champions like, I think, Sheamus was champion. Oh no, sorry, Sheamus wasn't champion. It was Jack Swagger. I was thinking of Jack Swagger, but I said Sheamus. I know Sheamus started in ECW, but at the end of its run, I mean, you had guys like Christian and Ezekiel Jackson feuding for the championship, with Big Zeke being the final ECW champion, and I thought it was just such a poor version of its original self. It was more of a, I thought it was a disgrace. It was kind of a shame and a disgrace to the original ECW Paul Heyman form, where it was really hardcore and raw and edgy and blood and crazy gimmick matches and Crash TV and all that stuff. It was just, having the name ECW was a disgrace to the original ECW, and I was glad that they finally got rid of it. And the ECW championship itself was very, very third rate. It was basically a mid-card title. Number 8, Brodus Clay is a cartoony type of character, and I love it. He's one of the better new type of characters. He's a perfect fit for the PG era. And these comedy fun characters like Santino and Brodus, they're a lot more emphasized, I think, during the PG era. And I think their brand of comedy, that sort of, I wouldn't say, I mean, it's kind of an innocent type of humor. It's a lot more carefree. It seems more fun. And you take a look at Santino with his British Tea Time segment with Kozlov. That's a perfect example right there. Brodus Clay, a fun character. So these fun characters fit a lot more, I think, in the PG era, where they're more family friendly and they seem a lot more fitting in this type of environment, where the demographic is children and a younger audience, where they can appreciate these fun characters, and it's not so serious. It's not so grim and dark and almost depressing, and almost like everything has to be some kind of melancholic morbidity, and everything has to be some kind of dark anti-hero. Why can't we just have fun sometimes? So Brodus Clay, Santino, the fun, cartoony, goofy characters are a good thing. Number 9, Tough Enough's revival from 2011. Now, I never really watched the early Tough Enoughs. I wasn't watching WWE at the time, but I did catch glimpses of it. And when Tough Enough came back, I thought it was a cool thing. I thought the programming itself was fun to watch. I enjoyed it. I liked the reality aspect to it. It was almost like the UFC Ultimate Fighter, except there was a lot more of a work element in the matches and everything, and the way it's presented. It's more of a work. And I thought it just felt kind of fresh. The programming itself, you had these no-name people trying to be in the WWE. One of them has an opportunity if they ever make it. And we are exposed to these, again, these no-names, but it was just fun to see how this program was presented in such a way where they get a chance to be in the WWE, where they're almost given a chance to get handpicked by the WWE. They do all these contests, and it's physical exertion and how they learn, and being trained by Bill DeBott. I thought it was entertaining, and I hope that they come back with 2012 season after WrestleMania this year, and I'm looking forward to it. On a side note, I thought that Luke should have won last year's Tough Enough over, I think the guy's name was Andy, the guy who won it. And he's still in developmental right now in FCW, I think. I think that Luke should have been pushed. He was cocky, he was arrogant, he was pretty decent in the ring, he could talk. And I think he should have won it, but it is what it is. Number 10. The emphasis of edgier storylines and promos. You're talking about the CM Punk last year, Kane's return, Jericho's alcohol feud with CM Punk, even The Rock's promos, and even when John Cena came back as Doctor of Thugonomics. For that matter, let's talk about TNA. Even TNA, with their non-PG, a bit more edgy, and showing women's backsides and swear words and cussing like Mr. Anderson and his asshole kind of thing. These non-PG elements are more emphasized when they're presented in this era. When they're presented now, you see these type of attitude-esque type of things. It seems a lot more emphasized compared to maybe it would have been 10 years ago, 7 years ago, where everything was kind of trying to be edgy, trying to be vulgar, trying to be overly sexual, basically marketed to a adult demographic or an older, older teen demographic. Now, if everything is PG and then you get the occasional crazy, more adult-oriented, more older, mature type of material, then it actually feels fresh, it feels new, it feels invigorating, and it's a shock of freshness to the actual product. And I know that sounds kind of strange because, well, it's PG, and doesn't that mean that PG is bad? And if something edgy happens, something non-PG, then surely it means that PG is bad. It's a bad thing. I look at it in a more positive way. I look at it like PG is sort of the normal thing, and then you get the occasional crazy over PG type of thing. You get the occasional mature rated thing where everybody gets to sort of like, wow, that was crazy, that was out of the PG boundaries. Programming doesn't have to be bad just because it's PG. I mean, look at the 80s, look at the early 90s of wrestling. Programming then was, okay, it was more, children could appreciate it more. There wasn't a lot of, vulgarity or sexual innuendo or, any kind of crash TV. It's okay to go back to that and appreciate that type of programming. I think that I've never really had a problem with PG writing per se, that kind of toned down for children type of programming, as long as occasionally we do get the occasional edgy stuff, the edgy storyline, the more mature storyline, the more dark and serious storylines. So, again, talking about the Kane feud with John Cena, I thought that was a pretty cool, intense feud. That level of intensity can be manifested and can be shown on TV without having to compromise so many things, without having to tone it down to the point where it's completely just insulting your intelligence. And there has to be some kind of balance between, okay, it's way too kiddish, it's way too dumbed down to the point that you can't even appreciate it, and then comparing that to I think this sort of happy medium where you can have the occasional, alcohol feud. You can have the occasional intense rivalry, and it's more of an older theme. So, I mean, those are the things that I can think of. That's my top 10 things that I liked about the PG era of the WWE. Let me know what y'all thought down below in the comment section. If you actually agree with some of these. If you disagree, just let me know. What do you like, if any, about the PG era? So that's it for this episode of The Review Space, and until next time, ciao.